Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. This is Asif Qureshi and you are watching Dr. Asif Lectures. In this video, we are going to talk about gluconeogenesis. By definition, gluconeogenesis, as the word explains, it basically means formation of new glucose molecules, basically from the non-carbohydrate sources. So that is the good news for you, that your body can actually make glucose whenever it is required. Okay, so let's have a look at this slide. It tells and talks about some basics of gluconeogenesis. Now, first thing you should know about gluconeogenesis is the definition. It is the formation of new glucose, usually from the non-carbohydrate sources. Now, when does gluconeogenesis occur in your body? Now, think about it. We have previously discussed overview of energy metabolism, and in overview of energy metabolism I emphasized a lot that at all times in your life your body is either in the state of well-fed when you have eaten a lot, or your body in a state of fasting. So when do you think your body will be making glucose? Obviously in the state of fasting, when you are hypoglycemic. So when you are not eating, your body does not have glucose from outside, it starts making glucose from inside, because you know glucose is the major fuel for red blood cells and brain. The brain on long-term starvation can convert its dependability on fatty acids or ketone bodies, ultimately ketone bodies utilization, but red blood cells, they are always going to use glucose. So your body has to maintain a required basal level of glucose, and this is the process which helps. Okay, so when does this occur? During starvation, during hypoglycemia, your body wants to make more glucose, so more gluconeogenesis in fasting state. Now, what are the hormones responsible? We discussed this in detail in the first lecture, which was called overview of energy metabolism, that the two states of the body, when you are well fed and when you are fasting, what are the hormones which are released? During the well-fed state, it was insulin. But during the fasting state, what were the hormones? The major hormone was glucagon. And here it is written at the top of the list. Other hormones are also important as far as glucose formation is concerned, and they include cortisol. Do not forget that one of the major functions of cortisol is glucose production. Okay, also growth hormone, thyroid hormone, and catecholamines. So these are the major hormones which are involved in gluconeogenesis. They promote gluconeogenesis, glucose formation. Now, what do we need when we have to make glucose? We obviously need some basic raw material. So two of them, actually three of them. We need carbon source as a skeleton of the glucose molecule. You know glucose is made up of 6 carbon molecules. So we know the carbon skeleton to make glucose molecule. That's one thing. And the other thing is ATP. Guys, right from the beginning of the lecture, please understand gluconeogenesis is an energy consuming process, because you are trying to make glucose against the flow of a cycle, and for that you need ATP. So it consumes a lot of ATP. So two things that you need are carbon skeleton sources and ATP. So in this lecture we must understand from where carbon is coming, from where ATP is coming. Okay, so that's the basic requirement for understanding gluconeogenesis. Third thing which is required is the enzymatic machinery. Now, enzymatic machinery means that what are the pathways that are used to make new glucose molecule, and I'll tell you the pathways in a minute, but please make sure that you absolutely understand this slide before we proceed. What is gluconeogenesis? When is it performed? What are the hormones included? What's needed? What's the basic raw material for gluconeogenesis? And now let's talk about what are the pathways. So we utilize the existing pathways in the body, which are glycolysis and Krebs cycle. Let's move on. Now you must realize all these names and these arrows and everything. You are familiar with this because we have discussed in glycolysis lecture in detail from the glucose up till the formation of pyruvate. And in the Krebs cycle lecture, we have discussed from acetyl-CoA and how does it move the Krebs cycle. So this figure is basically combining the two pathways, the glycolysis pathway and Krebs cycle pathway. I have detailed videos already uploaded for glycolysis and Krebs cycle. I'm giving the links in this description. So do watch those videos if you have not watched as yet, so that you understand each and every step involved in glycolysis as well in Krebs cycle. Okay, now let's move on. Now, I'm not going to revise all the cycle, but very quickly in glycolysis, what happens? Glucose enters into the cell, converts into glucose 6-phosphate, then fructose 6-phosphate, fructose 1,6-biphosphate, glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, and dihydroxyacetone phosphate. And through a series of reaction, what is the end product of glycolysis? Pyruvate, 2 molecules of pyruvate. And then the pyruvate then enters inside the mitochondria, and then Krebs cycle is it takes place within mitochondria, okay? So all this bit, acetyl-CoA citrate, isocitrate, alpha-ketoglutarate, this is all happening in mitochondria. We have discussed this in great detail with all the enzymes and other factors and clinical correlates in different videos of glycolysis and Krebs cycle. Now, this is the same pathway which is utilized for gluconeogenesis. Formation of new glucose molecule uses the same pathway. What does that mean? You see here. If I reverse from any step of this pathway, say for example, if I pick up pyruvate, I can go back on the same cycle and the end product will be glucose. So glucose can go down in glycolysis and any product from glycolysis can go up and make glucose. So it's the two-way type of thing, okay? But there is a problem. You see, most of the reactions in glycolysis are reversible reactions, which means, for example, glucose 6-phosphate can be converted into fructose 6-phosphate and back and forth and back and forth. Fructose 6-phosphate can also be converted into glucose 6-phosphate. Similarly, if you see here, 1,3-bis-phosphoglycerate can be converted into 3-phosphoglycerate, and reverse is also true. So it's easy to go from bottom to the top up till glucose. The idea is in glycolysis, glucose travels down the pathway, and in gluconeogenesis, any molecule travels up. But I said there is a problem. Actually, there are 3 problematic areas. You see the 3 blue arrows? These are irreversible reaction, which means when the molecules are traveling up and converting into one and other molecules, these arrows are simply irreversible, which means this. Pyruvate cannot be simply converted into phosphoenol pyruvate. Now here's the problem. If pyruvate has to go up and make glucose molecule, this is a problem. It cannot go up and make phosphoenol pyruvate, so your body has designed a bypass mechanism. You see, when you are moving in a road and a road is blocked, what you do, you take a bypass road, you take some other road and then reach your destination. So think it this way. You are here, you are pyruvate, and you want to go to this position, which is phosphoenol pyruvate, and this road is blocked because this is irreversible. Now what would you do? You as a pyruvate will take some other road and ultimately you will go to phosphoenol pyruvate, and from phosphoenol pyruvate you can go up and up and up and up and up unless you reaches for fructose 1,6-bisphosphate, because fructose 1,6-bisphosphate cannot be converted into fructose 6-phosphate. It's an irreversible reaction. Again, the road is blocked. You have to take a bypass, okay? And again, once glucose 6-phosphate is produced, glucose cannot be produced simply unless you take a bypass. So there are 3 blockages. When you are moving up and trying to make glucose, there are 3 blockages, and those blockages must be bypassed with another set of enzymes, another set of molecules, and then you are good to go. So basically, in gluconeogenesis, you have to understand that the same glycolysis pathway is used. Molecules go up, but there are 3 blockages, and those blockages are bypassed, and ultimately you get glucose, okay? So let's start discussing what are the blockages, how they are bypassed, and what are the carbon sources. I'm telling you, I told you that there are 3 major requirements. You need carbon sources, you need ATP, and you need enzymatic machinery. Enzymatic machinery is here. The same enzymes are used, only you add a few enzymes to bypass the blockages. So the enzymatic machinery is there. Now what are the carbon sources? There are 3 carbon sources. The first carbon source is lactic acid. Now lactic acid can be converted into pyruvate, and you can see this. Pyruvate converts into oxaloacetate, not acetyl-CoA. Pyruvate gets converted into oxaloacetate by enzyme which is called pyruvate carboxylase. It utilizes ATP. I told you ATP will be used, okay? And carbon dioxide molecule is also used. Now oxaloacetate is converted, before it's converted, it's it's modulated, it's positively activated by acetyl-CoA, okay? So that's the thing to remember here. Now, oxaloacetate is converted into malate, which gets out of mitochondria. Remember, Krebs cycle was happening in mitochondria. So oxaloacetate cannot get out of mitochondria. Here's the beauty. So oxaloacetate first converts into malate, and via the malate shuttle, malate gets out of mitochondria and converts back again to oxaloacetate, which is converted into phosphoenol pyruvate by an enzyme which is called phosphoenol pyruvate carboxykinase, PepsiK, which is regulated. And what do you think? Which hormone will regulate? Insulin? No, because insulin is a well-fed state hormone. This is starving. You are making more glucose. So what will be the hormones? Come on, glucagon and cortisol and epinephrine and norepinephrine and all those sort of stuff, okay? So now, you see what's happening here. The beauty of the bypass mechanism, which you need to understand. Lactic acid is there, it gets converted into pyruvate. Now pyruvate cannot directly convert into phosphoenol pyruvate because it's a roadblock. So it takes a bypass. The bypass is oxaloacetate to malate to oxaloacetate and to phosphoenol pyruvate. So ultimately we do make phosphoenol pyruvate, but not directly from pyruvate. We take a bypass, and in the bypass, malate is produced and it goes out of mitochondria, and a couple of other enzymes are involved. Those enzymes are pyruvate carboxylase and phosphoenol pyruvate carboxykinase. So see how beautifully your body wants to make glucose by moving up in the glycolysis pathway. As soon as there is a blockage, it bypasses it. Now, once phosphoenol pyruvate is produced, it easily converts into 2-phosphoglycerate using the same enzymatic machinery because it's a reversible reaction. 3-phosphoglycerate, 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate, glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, fructose 1,6-bisphosphate, and boom, blockage again. Now fructose 1,6-bisphosphate cannot be converted into fructose 6-phosphate. So what will happen? A bypass, and here is the bypass. The bypass enzyme here is called fructose 1,6-bisphosphatase. So it converts fructose 1,6-bisphosphate to fructose 6-phosphate, and it is also regulated. Now think about it. The opposite enzyme, which was favoring glycolysis in the downward direction, was positively influenced by insulin, as mentioned here, and negatively influenced by ATP. The opposite is true here. It is negatively influenced by insulin and positively influenced by ATP, which is usually coming from fatty acid beta oxidation, okay? So if you have more ATP, you can make more glucose. Basically, you have more ATP, you can make more glucose. And that ATP is usually coming from beta oxidation of fatty acids, okay? So what's happening up till now? We are talking that glycolysis is being used for production of glucose, and we are at the source number 1 for carbon skeleton. Lactic acid gets converted into pyruvate, gets converted into oxaloacetate, malate, gets out of mitochondria, back to oxaloacetate, phosphoenol pyruvate, go up, unless it reaches fructose 1,6-bisphosphate, which is acted upon by another bypass enzyme, which is called phosphorus 1,6. Now what we have got? Now we have got this molecule, which is called fructose 6-phosphate. It can be easily converted into glucose 6-phosphate because it's a reversible reaction, but boom, blockage again. Now, glucose 6-phosphate cannot go back and make glucose because it's an irreversible reaction. So what will happen? Another bypass. This glucose 6-phosphate will go to smooth endoplasmic reticulum and it will be converted into glucose by glucose 6-phosphatase, and this glucose will go out in your bloodstream. Beautiful. You made glucose from lactic acid using glycolysis and Krebs cycle machinery. So wherever the blockage was, there are new sets of enzymes for the bypass. I hope you understand. If you don't, please rewind the video again and again to understand how lactic acid is easily converted into glucose. Now, one more thing, this glucose 6-phosphatase is present primarily in liver. So therefore, glucose concentration in your blood are primarily maintained by liver. Although muscles or some other cells or kidney, for example, many other cells can perform little bit of gluconeogenesis, but the major contributor of glucose in the blood to maintain blood glucose levels during starvation is liver, because liver contains this enzyme which is called glucose 6-phosphatase. Without this enzyme, glucose will not be produced. Even if you have lactic acid, glucose will not be produced, okay? So that's the basic concept. Now, I told you there are 3 carbon sources. First carbon source is lactic acid. The other carbon source is triglycerides. And you know the triglycerides are broken down into glycerol and fatty acids. The glycerol feeds into dihydroacetone phosphate and it goes up, makes fructose 1,6-bisphosphate, and it takes a bypass and makes fructose 6-phosphate, glucose 6-phosphate, which takes a bypass to make the glucose. Same thing here, okay? And what happens to fatty acids? Fatty acids are used for beta oxidation. They produce ATP, and ATP is required for gluconeogenesis. So second source is triglyceride. What's the third source? The third source is amino acids. Your proteins break down during starvation, and amino acids, for example here alanine, gets ultimately converted into modified keto acids by a couple of reactions, but these modified keto acids can feed into multiple stages of glycolysis as well as Krebs cycle pathway. For example, the modified keto acids can be converted into pyruvate, and you know what happens? Pyruvate cannot be directly converted into phosphoenol pyruvate. It takes a bypass, and the same thing follows, which we discussed for lactic acid. Modified keto acids can also feed into citrate or alpha ketoglutarate. The point of understanding the whole gluconeogenesis is this. What are the carbon sources? Carbon sources for gluconeogenesis are three. They are lactic acid, triglycerides, and amino acids. From where is the ATP coming? Beta oxidation of fatty acids. What is the enzymatic machinery being used? Glycolysis and Krebs cycle. Do we use some new enzymes? Yes. When? Whenever there is a bypass required, whenever there is a roadblock, whenever there is an irreversible reaction. So if you cannot simply go up, you take a bypass and go up. You take a bypass. So how many bypasses are there? 3 bypasses. How many total enzymes are involved in those bypasses? 4 bypasses. Because in the first bypass, there are 2 enzymes involved: pyruvate carboxylase and phosphoenol pyruvate carboxykinase. So if you understand this, you understand whole concept of gluconeogenesis. It utilizes the same machinery. Simply by going up, there are blockages, you take the bypass, okay? Now, here is a very important pharmacological point of view. Now, in pharmacology, you use this drug quite a lot, which is called metformin. Metformin basically blocks this enzyme for pyruvate carboxylase, and if it blocks pyruvate carboxylase, gluconeogenesis will be stopped. So metformin basically stops formation of glucose during starvation. So that's the mechanism of action of metformin. So metformin is a very commonly used diabetic drug, one of the first line in many scenarios. So you must know this. You must understand how does metformin work. Metformin basically works by inhibiting this particular enzyme. By inhibiting this particular enzyme, the process of gluconeogenesis is blocked. Okay? Now, what will happen? Think about one of the common side effects of metformin. Do you know? Let me tell you. If this pathway is blocked at this stage, what will accumulate? Pyruvate. Because pyruvate can now not be converted into oxaloacetate. It's blocked in here, so pyruvate will start accumulating. And once pyruvate accumulates, it gets converted into lactic acid. So lactic acidosis is one of the major side effects of metformin use. Okay, so remember this, and this makes sense to you, doesn't it? Because you need to understand the biochemical pathways in order to understand the pharmacology. And that's an example. Metformin causes lactic acidosis, and now you know the mechanism, okay? Now, all this is happening primarily in liver, but also can happen in kidney. But liver is the major contributor of blood glucose. By maintaining blood glucose levels, liver wins the race during fasting scenarios, because liver is the primary hub of gluconeogenesis. So guys, I hope you understand how your body makes glucose by using 3 sources and ATP and the existing enzyme machinery and the bypass mechanisms. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please subscribe the channel, like the video, share the video, and I will be back with another metabolic pathway very soon. Thank you.